All right, good evening. I'd like to open the meeting, call it to order. Attendance we already covered. Any open public participation? Anybody on? Nobody on. Okay, very good. We've got 3 budgets to cover tonight, right? Right, excuse me. We'll just take them in order if that's okay. We'll start first with the IT budget. I just got today the minutes from the IT, so you guys, the rest of you all, don't have them. So I don't know if it's up, if anyone wants to make any initial comments.
I will.
Sure.
Okay, so overall, Todd is bringing this budget in at just 2.94% above what it was last year. We had a terrific conversation just about, I mean, there are definitely some things to consider here. One of them is that they've got salary offsets. They've got monies coming in from the enterprise fund and from the schools for work that the IT staff are doing on behalf of those entities. And so the increase in salaries before chargebacks was about 6.48%, but after chargebacks, it was 3.5%, because a lot of those monies go into salaries. And we talked about the risk of potentially losing that money at some point in the future. And Todd made some great points, one of which is that they are providing these services to those entities for a lot less money than they would have to pay if they went outside of the town's IT department to get these things done. So that's a good thing, and that they're likely to continue. Evan also brought up a great point about whether the town is currently in compliance with our IT security policy, which would help us out in the case where we were hacked. And Todd made that clear that we're in good shape there. We're compliant with it. We also talked about the fact that software maintenance is going up by a lot. It's just over 10% this year. But a couple of things affected that. One of them is that Munis has gone up a fair amount. Also, we had 3 new pieces of software that came under the IT budget that added a lot to that total. But in the end, it is what it is. We use all of this software a lot, and we need it. And so it's just something that we're going to have to keep an eye on. Again, if it's going up 10% each year, that can be problematic. But it's something that we need to do. We need to keep an eye on. We also talked about the fact that there's $69,000 in account 5731, which is a subscription for Office 365. We haven't actually started to use that. That amount was in the budget last year. It's in the budget this year. We haven't yet started to use that subscription. And hopefully Todd can let us know if there's a sense for when that might happen. I think we talked about it, but I didn't note the answer. But it's also important to know that if we don't actually use that money, it'll just go back into the budget, for general funds. And then Stefan talked about the fact that we've got hardware currently in the town that the town IT department is responsible for that is not going to be able to take an upgrade to Windows 11, and Windows 10 is going to go end of life, I think at the end of 25. Yeah, late in 2025. So the question is, how are we going to make sure that we anticipate the needs for upgrading hardware and make sure that we get that taken care of? And Stefan also asked about whether there's any hardware purchases in the capital budget, because we don't seem to be buying hardware through the IT budget. And that's something that I need to follow up on to do a little deeper dive into that. And then we also talked about the various accounts that are either way above or way below the 50% spent mark halfway through the year. And in every case, Todd had terrific explanations about what those were about. That's what I have. If Stefan, if you or Evan want to add any comments, you're welcome to do so.
I think you covered it, Mr. Chairman. Unless Stefan has something, or I'm sure Todd will have something to say, but I'm good.
Nope. Actually, that was perfect. It's perfect recap of the meeting that we had. No
All right,
issues.
great. Thank you. Kevin, gonna go over the budget?
Yep, Kevin will start.
Thank you.
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Todd and his team do a great job for the town. This budget here, the IT budget, we're requesting an increase of $14,098 over the current fiscal year. Under personal services is actually a decrease of $7,397. This does include contractual and negotiated increases. Contractual and or negotiated increases. Main reason for this reduction, we increased the offset from the enterprise funds. The municipal light department offset was increased $30,000. Of that $30,000, we used we increased Todd's pay $8,000, Dave Driscoll's pay $5,000, for a total of $13,000. The balance of the $30,000 increase, $17,000, was basically used to absorb the salary increases and actually created the decrease overall from last year to this year of $7,397. Contractual services, as Brian has mentioned, has increased $13,698. Main increase there, there's a couple of new software programs involved there. We increased the training line item $800. We actually decreased the travel line item $3,900. The reason for that was we moved those costs from contractual services down to materials and supplies. You'll see materials and supplies has increased $6,630 from last year to next year. And that's there's a new motor vehicle parts line item for $5,880. This is used for upkeep of the two departmental vehicles that Todd and his team use to travel around town when they need to. Total budget request for fiscal 25 is $493,253.
All right, very good. We can go to questions unless Todd wants to add anything else.
Brian did a great job. Kevin did a good job presenting that. So I'm open to questions.
Very good. All right, Ed?
Yes, I was very curious about the apportionment of costs with the school department and the enterprise fund, and maybe this is to Kevin. What's that based on? Is that staff time?
There was an original breakout several years ago with drops over at the school department.
Okay.
I can add a little more too. So there's actually different chargebacks that we have with each entity. So the schools, for instance, is that original agreement that was a certain portion based on drops and equipment that they have. Then we have another portion where we support their services and Windows environment. And what we did was came in at a discount of what they were getting for quotes from outside vendors. Same thing happens with gas and light. We have 3 different types of support that we provide that they have different values to them.
Great, and I'm sure you spend a lot of staff time with the school department, so it's a great practice that you're apportioning these costs effectively. Next question, what version of Munis are you on?
We just upgraded to the latest version of Munis. The actual version number, I'm not sure of that. I could get that. We have a Munis admin. But
And
it's
you mentioned increased costs, software costs with Munis on the maintenance.
yeah.
Yeah. Just a comment, Tyler pretty much has the market on municipal accounting services, so we're always, we got our hands are at our throats almost every year on these costs. That was just a commentary. Thank you.
Yep, Brian, you're next.
Thank you very much. Okay, so 2 things, Todd. One, there was that 19.8% uptick on the Patriot Properties line item. and we talked about how that basically the assessor's office had asked for some additional reporting that wasn't part of the package initially. Do I have that right?
Correct. He's going to do some additional support from them,
Okay.
whether it's one-off reporting or recurring, I'm not sure. But I
Okay,
believe
so-
it's one-off.
So when I was thinking about that, my question is, why is that in maintenance? Like if we need somebody to do some one-off reporting that isn't part of the package, then it seems like if we put that in contractual services, then we don't have to pay 10% more on that each year because it was part of maintenance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I could follow back up with Victor on that one.
Okay.
He had just mentioned that he had additional services from that vendor and asked that it increase that amount.
And then, thank you. And then Zoom went up 40% from the previous year, and you said that we had gotten Zoom room licenses for a bunch of rooms in Town Hall and other places, I guess. Is there any sort of hardware component to that, or is that just software licenses for additional rooms?
The hardware is all covered through funds and grants that Steve had gotten for us.
Well done, Steve. That's it for me. Thank you.
All right, very good. Dan?
Thanks, Chairman. So I have two questions. One has to do with, I'm looking at Todd's salary, and it's basically a 9% increase. And I'm trying to understand the justification for the size of the increase in the salary.
Sure. The reason the gas and light department is contracted on for 30,000 more in services is mainly for the support that I provide. So it's
So your workload went up.
correct.
Okay. And then my second question has to do with our malware and the black hats out there attacking cities and towns. I spent a lot of time and energy regarding that risk. It's a very high risk, and we all know that there have been cities and towns that got hacked. So can you give me a little confidence that the town of Wakefield will not get hacked and malware?
As soon as we say we're not going to get hacked, that's an invite for people to try. But,
Yeah.
But we've been doing well so far, and we're applying for another grant that just came out last weekend that's going to bolster those defenses.
So you feel pretty good about it.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll see.
Answer some of that. We've also done a lot of training, Dan, that even I know when something comes in now that this doesn't look quite right, and I send it to Todd. Is this phishing? He said, yeah, it is.
Well,
A
yeah,
lot of employee training,
Yeah,
which is a big part of it.
Yeah, I would say that 95 to maybe 98% of all companies that get hacked, or municipalities, any employer that gets hacked, is because the employee clicked on something that they shouldn't have. I mean, that we have firewalls, we got all kinds of software to stop all that stuff, but it's human error is 98% of the time, if not 100, where a company will get in themselves in big trouble. So we need to do lots of training and making sure. And to that regard, do we do any what I would call testing of our employees? In other words, sending out, hire a company like, I don't know, there's lots of them out there that will go ahead and put together phishing emails and test our employees to see if they bite. So some of you know I am on the board of directors of the savings bank, and we've hired a company that goes out and they do phone, they do emails, they'll do phishing, and we could send out 100, and one employee will bite. And that's all it takes is one employee to bite. And next thing you know, you've got a major problem. So are we doing that kind of thing with our employees? Are we testing them, sending out fake emails from a professional company to see if any of our employees are inclined to click something that they shouldn't?
Yeah, we have, with the training, we do testing like that, and we also send out some test emails. It's not through a third-party company, but it's through our antivirus software. So that's one of the features that they have as a tool. So you can send those phishing emails out and then get a report on who's going to click.
And how we've been doing?
So far, so good with that.
Okay, good to hear. Thank you. I'm all set.
Great. I just had two questions. You mentioned Outlook 365, I think, or somebody did. So Todd, is that, are you gonna move to the platform for 365?
Yeah, that's the plan. So if we get it done before July 1st, it'll be with the current fiscal year budget for this year's subscription. And then what we'll have to do is we still have it in the budget for next year because we'll have to renew come June 30th of next year.
Yeah, that's I would describe it as kind of pricey. It's a per seat annual charge, right?
That's actually the ongoing price that we would see.
Okay. And then the only other comment I would have is it's good to see, you know, overall that the personal services is going down. I was a little concerned, you know, getting the big charge back coming in. It just seemed like I was expecting a bigger reduction. I see some salaries went up, you know, higher than normal, if you would. But, you know, hopefully the charge back continues. But you got 30,000 in, is that what it was? Additional 30 from the light department?
Correct.
Okay.
And I've said in the past with school chargebacks when we've increased that if we ever do lose those chargebacks, we'll reduce the salaries too.
Okay. All right. I'll remember that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I think Todd needs to be given a lot of kudos.
Absolutely.
Overall, in the public safety building saved us a lot of money doing a lot of in his department, doing a lot of the work on on their own. So
Good.
really helped out a lot.
Glad to hear that. All right, thanks. IT all set. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Police department is next. And we have the chief and the deputy with us this evening here. So, Billy, you want to run over some highlights from the subcommittee?
Yeah, so hi, Chief and Deputy Chief, and Amy and Ed and I met with them on February 1st. I did separately send out, of course, it's in the package from Sherry, but I sent out our minutes to everybody for them to, have some visibility to. So I hope people had a chance to look those over. Again, appreciate the cooperation and the feedback with the chief and deputy chief. We don't only talk about, budget things specifically, but they give us information about the overview of some operations within the department, the manpower, grants, things like that. So I think it really helps us have a better overall clear picture of their operations beyond, just the budget. So as noted, and I know Kevin will talk about this, the overall increase is 4.99%. Basically, all of it's in labor. There's a breakdown in the notes about the 5% raise that was effective with fiscal year 24 and also in place for 25 and 26. There was some increases in the contractual services line item that I know the chief will speak to. And really, that's about it. I know he'll talk about increasing the emergency overtime and why it's increased. Interesting to hear some of the things that they're subjected to. I believe they said, they've got $37,000 worth of grants, which is great that the chief and other members of his deputy chief and other members pursue grants for things like dispatch training, mental health, cameras for investigations, technical gear, things like that. The chief talked about this with us, and he also, I didn't participate, but I watched the meeting with the town council on Monday. So, Chief, I think it'd be interesting if you elaborated a little bit on this. I think you actually maybe spoke about it a little bit more than you did with us, only because we didn't pursue that line of questioning as much as Ed Dombrowski did. But there is one opening on the department we've noted before, Chief has noted before that, hiring people in the department is not easy. The applications are down. It's a 12-month onboarding cycle, and he has some information he can share about that I think everybody would be interested and fascinated to know. Just, they've got 3 school resource officers, one at the junior high and high school, and the VOC, the salary for that is paid in part or by the VOC school. Something interesting that we've talked about has come up over the last couple of years. And I know, this is an active ongoing discussion with Steve about the possibility of civilian dispatches to free up people who are policemen not to do some of those roles. But again, I know we've mentioned it the last 2 times we've talked about this budget, but for the moment it's tabled, and we asked about capital and this requesting to replace three vehicles, and pretty much try to do that every year on a rotation to keep the equipment fresh. So that would sort of be my recap. I want to, allow Amy or Ed if they have any specific things they'd like to note from their takeaway from our meeting.
I think that's very comprehensive. No, I have nothing more to add. You've covered everything.
Agreed. I don't have anything to add either.
Okay.
All
Thank you.
right, thank you. Kevin?
Police budget, I'll give you a quick overview. I'll turn it over to the chief. The fiscal 25 budget, we're recommending an increase, $357,477. Under personal services, the increase was $343,977. The main reason for this increase was the settlement of the police contract. Under contractual services, the overall increase, $13,500. We increased the auto maintenance line item $2,000, radio maintenance $5,000, in the computer maintenance $6,500. All these increases were basically due to increase in costs. Last year we did put some money into computer maintenance. That handles the body cameras that are pretty new to the force. Sundry materials and supplies and sundry charges have been level funded. Total budget request fiscal 25, $7,514,617.
Very good, Kevin. Thank you. Chief, you want to run through some of the items?
Sure, that's a great recap by Kevin and Bill. If you'd like, I can go through the individual items that we're looking for the increase in.
Sure, that would be fine.
Sure. So like Kevin said, the bulk of that is contractual raises. There are 3 areas in contractual services where I'm looking for an increase. The first is maintenance auto, looking for a $2,000 increase there. Just the general cost of maintaining automobiles has gone up last few years. That line item has been level funded since I took over the budget in 2019. And what that cost, what that line item covers is covers the expenses for fleet vehicles such as repairs to emergency equipment, insurance deductibles on the vehicles in an accident, car washes and car detailing, and any other miscellaneous costs associated with maintaining the cars. So looking for the $2,000 increase there. The next line item looking to increase is maintenance radios. Just like some of the challenges that Todd faces with increased costs for software, we face the same thing with radios. Radios are, for the most part, computer operated now, and we have a service contract with Allcom Technologies. What that service contract covers is 24-hour callouts for repairs and replacement of any defective equipment that's under warranty. So over the last few years, cost of that contract has gone up significantly. In fiscal year 22, it was $11,149. Fiscal year 23, it went up to $15,168. Fiscal year 24 was $19,475. So based on those increases, I'm projecting it to be somewhere around $23,500 for fiscal year 25. And that line item has been level funded for years too. So looking for the increase there. And then the next line item that I'm looking for an increase in is computer maintenance. So again, that really comes down to maintenance, a contract we have with the with the computer software company that handles our records management system. That's gone up significantly. Fiscal year 20, it was 19,649. We have no bill yet for this year. It usually comes in June, so that line item really hasn't been spent yet, but we get that bill early June. But for fiscal year 23, it was 24,423. So over a 3-year span, it went up $5,000. It also covers a couple of other things, our website maintenance, our contract with the Criminal History Systems Board, and our telephone reporting system. So those are the three increases in contractual services. Are there any other questions about any of the line items?
Open it up. Yep, Dan?
Yeah, thanks. So I got a few questions, although the chief just answered one of them. The total increase is 5%, and I understand it's, the contract. But when I looked at the finance committee subcommittee on police minutes, I'm a little bit confused about the union negotiated increase. It says here it's 5% for each year, includes 24, 25, and 26. But when I read the increases, I understand a 2.5% COLA, no issue there. But the accreditation, the specialized training, and there's 2 of them, those feel like one shots. Should it be 5% for 24 and then 2.5% for 25 and 26? I don't understand. Don't understand why the one shots are getting additional increases on top of what they already got.
Those are each year. Those aren't one shots. Those are yearly increases.
But wait a second, the accreditation, you have to be accredited to be a cop, right?
That's for the department accreditation. Your what is the other one called? Post-certification. Post-certification is for each individual officer. The accreditation is for the department. They have to have a department that has standing operating procedures, meeting the state requirements. We're one of a handful in the state that have it, and go down there and get a nice ceremony.
So what's with the specialized
And that's
training?
merit. If we lose that, they lose that, by the way.
No, so what's with this specialized training? Why is that there every year?
That was for the increasing mental health component of their job.
But why are we paying that for 25 and 26? Why isn't it?
Because it increases every year. That was the agreement that we struck.
So you're giving 5% every year for 3 years.
When you add everything up, yes, but you have to remember, they don't have any steps. After 4 steps, they're done.
Nobody has steps at police departments. Where's the Steve Mayo I know?
I think you voted for this when we presented it to FinCom.
Yeah, in the fall.
In the fall?
No, spring. Was
in the fall.
Fall.
Did we know? Did we know it's 5% every year for 3 years?
Yes, I think so.
I did, yeah.
I don't remember this. I'm getting old, so that may excuse me.
So am I, Dan.
That's like one meeting a year. It could have been that meeting. Maybe one a year, Dan.
But my point is, Steve, we're trying to hold departments at 4% a year. This is going to be 5%. And this is the major, obviously this is the biggest part of the police budget, personal services. So we're facing 5% a year for 3 years in the police budget, right?
That is that's the contract. Yes.
Yes.
My forecast does not show 5%. Why didn't you tell me to change my forecast? I just think I think it's excessive.
I could take some of the heat for that. Maybe I didn't see it in your forecast, Dan. I do look at the forecast, and I obviously must not have picked up on that.
Yeah, I'm not saying they don't deserve it. So to help me with that, so what are other communities paying their police? What what's the line officer getting? What's the sergeant getting? Have we done any surveys to
Yeah.
see what other communities, like communities, are, our peers? What are we paying versus the other peers? Anybody have that info?
Yeah, Chief's got like to speak on that.
So Dan, this kind of ties into what Bill was referring to earlier when I was talking to the town council the other night about how difficult it is to recruit and retain officers now. There's such a competitive nature between police departments because there's such a shortage of men and women who want to take this job. There's a lot of people who are getting out of civil service, a lot of departments, towns getting out of civil service to
Yeah.
make it easier for them to recruit people. So for anybody to recruit, retain, hire is very difficult. So we have to be competitive. This is the best way for us to be competitive and to attract and retain people.
Right. Okay. All right. I know I get that part because I mean, as Steve knows, I always hype on, what's the market
Yeah.
for individuals. I did a lot of work at the library, which we'll get to regarding the market for, librarians. And to me, it's always the market because what you need to do is be able to say, okay, if you don't like this contract, go someplace else, but we know that someplace else is no better, right? You always want to be in a position to be able to say that. So I get that. I'm a little bit surprised that we're looking at, at least 5% for 3 years.
It's Doug Butler tonight.
Yeah, that was a surprise to me. And the
I'm
other
sorry,
thing,
Dan, I thought I was pretty clear when we talked about it. So.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then my last comment is, Chief, the snowmobile trails up here suck, so don't bother coming up.
Dan, I ripped by your house about a week ago. That was good then, but I'm sure it's all done now.
It's pretty ugly. Yeah, there's rocks and trees and gravel to contend with. So you get last week was good.
I'll make you feel a little bit better. You have what, maybe 9 retirements coming up?
Yeah, so I just want to talk a little bit about, again, about personnel. Bill brought it up. The other night at the town council meeting, I let them know that potentially there are 9 retirements in the next 3 years. This current fiscal year, we had an academy one individual graduate the academy in August, 2 more graduate in October, but that doesn't mean that they're street ready. They still have to complete a 12-week field officer training program before they're allowed to go out on the street by themselves. So one officer completed that in September. Another one completed it in January. We have one still finishing up. So for the first quarter of the year, we operated 4 bodies short. For the first half of the year, we've operated 3 bodies short. We're currently 2 bodies short. We're hoping to get one off field training soon. We have another person hired, scheduled to go to the academy in April. We always seem to be behind the 8 ball because of retirements, people getting injured, going out on injury leave. So we're never actually at the 47 that we're budgeted for, which is difficult. And where you see that reflected is when you look at the overtime expenditures through week 26 of this year, they're high because we have to fill shifts. If a shift is short, it has to be filled. Do I see that getting any better? No. With the 9 people who could retire, and I'm not saying they will, some won't. But you also have to factor in what I call the X factor. Those are the people who might leave to go to the state police because there's more opportunity for them to do a specialized gig at the state police. Maybe this job isn't for everybody that tries it. They leave to go into the private sector. There's people that get injured. You just can't predict everybody. So there's 9 plus the X factor. We're always going to be chasing it, is the way I look at it. We're always going to be chasing bodies. The difficulty now is when I took the civil service exam back in 1998, there were probably 400 or 500 people lined up at the door to get in the building. Our current civil service list has 25 names on it. And when we called for the list for our last hire back in October, when we pulled the list, everybody in that list was notified to come into the police department, sign the list, and indicate that they were interested in being a police officer. 9 people came in to sign that list out of the 25. I can tell you out of the 9 that signed, I could eliminate 4 right off the top. They couldn't pass a background check. We're down to 5. This is the difficulty in hiring people. So we have a serious challenge ahead of us in the next 3 to 4 years. The contracts, I know, Dan, sounds like a lot. but I think it's gonna go a long way towards helping us attract people and retain people. There is a bill at the State House, right now, it's being voted on soon, that would allow civil service agencies to do 50% of their hiring from the civil service list and 50% from a non-civil service list. That will be very helpful. A lot of the towns around us that have taken themselves out of civil service, they give their own hiring exams, and they're not bound by the rules and laws of civil service. They have a lot more discretion in who they can hire. And I'll use Reading as an example. They came out of civil service. They've had a lot of success of attracting police officers from other communities. They bring them in, they pay them well, they don't have to send them to the academy, saves them a ton of money and a ton of time. It's really something that I hope that this legislation at the State House will help us do. Because when we do start the hiring process for somebody, from the day we pull that civil service list till the time they drive a car by themselves is close to a year. That's a lot of time. But we have to make sure before we set them free and on their own that they've met the training standards they need to be at. You can elaborate on that if anybody wants. Bill, you have your hand up?
Well, I just, yeah, I don't, Chief, can you just elaborate a little bit more again? We didn't talk about this in the subcommittee, but you talked to the town council about this specifically and just a little bit more about, I mean, I don't know what the chances of that bill in the State House are, and I don't know if our local delegation has been lobbied, Steve, for that, but you were mentioning that there are specific programs at specific universities where people can come out and become police officers without going through a lot of the processes. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit more?
Sure. Merrimack College and Fitchburg State University, they've started programs where students can get their master's degree and the police academy at the same time. So what a lot of non-civil service towns have done is they go to these schools and they recruit. I'll use North Reading for an example. They've scooped probably 3, 4, maybe even 5 people out of Merrimack College. They graduate the police academy, they've got their master's degree, they've completed the academy, they come right on the job. Very easy. It saves them a lot of time, and they're getting really qualified people. If we can jump into that, do 50% of our hiring from there, I can send some of our people out to do some college recruiting. Right now, it would be a waste of our time to do that because we're strictly civil service. When the exam comes out, when the exam is announced, we do advertise in the local paper, we advertise on social media, we advertise on our website, but it's just not attracting enough people to take the job, to even take the test. And the ones who do take the test, only about 1/3 of them come in and sign the list when it comes out. And what I have noticed is that a lot of the people who do take the test and they are residents of our community, they're on our list, they go to the state police. I can tell you I've seen probably 3 or 4 names that are on our list. The state police have come around doing background checks on them in the last month or so. So we lose a lot of people to them because they offer a lot of opportunities we just don't have here.
So Chief, do you mind if I follow up?
Yeah.
So if you were able to go outside the civil service, what are your options? It's just to recruit at these 2 schools, or are there other avenues too? So like, what are the other options besides Merrimack and Fitchburg?
So what we could do is there are some private companies out there. I'll name one. It's called Hand to Hand Services. They offer a police exam. We would give our own police exam and anybody could come take it. It wouldn't have to be residents only. So then we could give our exam, we could go through the applicants, and there's no rule that says if Steve Scory scores tops on the exam that you have to hire him. You could jump anywhere on that list for the most qualified person.
Yeah.
And the other thing the reason it's really growing some legs at the State House is to help us get some diversity within our police department. Because right now we're limited to the names that are on our exam.
I would just say that the residents only exam really restricts your ability to get folks in. I mean, days gone by, yeah, you want to hire folks from the community, but times have changed.
That's right.
And you need to have a broad ability to hire, and diversity is a very, very good point. You're not going to get that on the civil service list.
Correct.
But if you want to diversify police and fire, you're going to have to do it on your own and do your own recruiting. You can't expect that from the state civil service.
Correct.
And without the guidance of, per se, like having a list that's very sort of a pyramid, you have to go from the top. Is it your discretion, or is there like a board that typically does it, like of your?
So we would have to create a policy on what procedure we're going to follow. Within the bill, there's a language that says that our policy has to be approved by the Civil Service Commission first.
Interesting. Okay.
So they would still have a little bit of a thumbprint on our non-civil service hiring. But it's,
But clearly other communities so the other communities that have done it, like North Reading, they've already gone through
they
that
completely
process.
removed themselves from civil service.
Yeah.
They had to pay. That was a payment
It has to be negotiated with the
negotiated
unions.
with the union.
Got it.
Yeah. This would not have to be.
Correct.
Because the state would just approve it and it would be so. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you for indulging me.
Yep.
And you said you, excuse me, anybody else? You said you advertised within the town for the test, right? Is that what you said?
For the state civil service exam, we do.
Right. But the people that get hired, they don't have to live in the town anymore, right? Is there a resident
As
requirement?
long as when
Years ago, they used.
When they
to do
take
things
the
like that.
exam, they have to have lived in the town for 1 year prior to the date of the exam.
I see.
That's how they get residence preference.
Okay, thank you.
But I'd also point out sometimes that gets abused. You get people moving into the town for.
It does. There are people who shop themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Any other budget comments?
One more question. I do like part of the settlement, especially the mental health component. I was wondering if you could just comment on that, Chief, because it gives you a little bit more management tools.
Sure, there's been a big focus in the last 3 or 4 years on the mental health of police officers. When I started this job, you would go on a call that might be stressful or go to a bad car accident, somebody's banged up pretty bad, and you were just expected to hop back in your car and keep on driving, right? Brush it off. And what we found over the years is all those built up calls inside somebody's head creates PTSD. And we have some young impressionable officers, so what we're looking to do is keep them healthy, keep them physically healthy, but also keep them mentally healthy. Our biggest investment is our people. Doing training, paying them. We want to keep them healthy, want to keep them on the job. We lost 2 people last year to PTSD. Very stressful call, something that I can't even describe to you. God knows what it do to many people, but we have to keep our people healthy. And I think what we're looking to do is start we have a mental health program, but we help people in the community. We have to focus on us now. And so what we're looking to do is get our people to sit down maybe with a counselor once or twice a year, go do it on their own. They don't have to come back and report it to me. Just let me know they went and just clear the air, whatever's in their head. It's all confidential. And a lot of departments have done it. They found it to be beneficial. They get a lot of positive feedback from their officers. And it's funny, some people, a police officer is supposed to be rough and tough. They get in that room and they melt down because all this stuff has been in their heads for so long. They finally have the opportunity to talk about it. And then they come back to work with a clear head.
And part of the reason for
Saves
that.
on overtime.
Part of the reason for that line item, because it was a contractual and negotiated item, right? Because of change in working conditions or
Basically.
term.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. We are extremely lucky to have them. The police officers, what they do right now, the things, what they take, what they prevent in the community is unbelievable.
And I just want to add that with police reform, after the 2020 police reform bill in this state, there was some good change with it, but it put an unbelievable amount of stress on the police officers because now they're expected to be perfect every single time they go to a call. There's no room for error. We're not meteorologists. We can't tell you there's going to be a huge storm and be wrong and everybody goes, oh, well. We don't have that luxury. We have to be spot on every single time. And that creates a lot of stress.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. Dan, your hand's up first.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to speak to those 2 officers for a moment. Because both of them came to the retirement board for disability retirement. And the retirement board granted those 2 disability retirements. And rightfully so. What they went through was horrendous. And so one of the things I think is really important here is to understand that both these officers were relatively young and short service, and putting them on disability is going to be very expensive, right? And the retirement system is going to take a hit. So to be able to prevent this, kind of problem through the, health services and professionals to assist, I think is money well spent. because I know for these two officers, it's going to cost us a lot of money. You're going to see a big hit on the retirement side of the budget, partly because of those disablements due to the PTSD. So I certainly support that aspect of the budget. Thank you.
Very good, thanks. Stefan?
Yeah, just one comment. I know there was there was a discussion, well, just recent of the two officers that departed the force. There was also mention of potentially upcoming 9 retirements. I did notice in this budget that there was only 1 vacancy that was listed. Should that be should there be, I guess, more vacancies listed?
We don't list the vacancy until there's a vacant position. So right now, that 1 position is listed vacant because the person who we have scheduled for the police academy hasn't officially been hired yet, so we don't put a name into that slot.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you.
Don?
Yes, Chief, is it possible to comment on detail pay and how that impacts the compensation for your staff?
Detail pay is paid by private contractors, so it doesn't affect base salary in any way at all. And in detail pay, details are optional. There's some officers who work a lot of details. We have some officers that have 4 or 5 kids. They're work animals. They're out there all the time, and we have some that don't work at all. We have some officers that work their 40-hour shifts and they're satisfied with that.
But the pay is actually processed through the town, the detail pay?
The pay is processed through the police department with a 10% admin fee.
Okay.
So we tack on a 10% admin fee to the companies.
Thank you.
All right, any other final thoughts? Appreciate you two coming in tonight.
They do a great job.
Appreciate what they
We're
do.
very, very lucky. We're the envy of the whole area with our police department.
Great. Sorry, any comment to the building? Is it done?
The building is fantastic.
I need a tour. I gotta get over there.
All of you that supported us and helped us with that building, I appreciate it. I say thank you. It was a great project. It was well done. We're thankful to have the space that we need. Comfortable in there now. We're not sitting on top of each other and stuffing blockers into hallways. So thank you to everybody. And so Deputy Chief Calabrese has been sitting here quiet because I did all the talking. I bring him because he's way better looking than me. And, so
Yes.
he's my support.
Thank you, Deputy, for coming in.
Thanks for coming.
All right, guys. Thank you. You guys are good. Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Thanks a lot.
guys.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Okay, so, is there anybody on from the library?
Well, Captain popped on earlier, but.
Thanks for coming.
Appreciate it. Have a good night. Oh, he's on. Turn cameras off. Yeah, okay.
All right, so, the last budget to be reviewed is the library budget. So, we did get library subcommittee minutes. So I don't know if, Dan, you want to, hit on the library subcommittee minutes first, and then we'll go to Kevin
Sure.
or Catherine?
Yep. So, so Teray, Joe and I met with the Library Board of Trustees after reviewing their initial draft of their budget. We really didn't have too much of an issue with a number of the items, except in the personal services. And on the personal services side, it was a very large increase. There was also a very large increase for Catherine, the director of the library. And so we pushed back and said, basically what's going on here with personal services? Why are these increases so much? We weren't comfortable with the size of the increase, both in total of personal services and with Catherine's new contract. So after that, and you'll see in the minutes, you read the minutes, you say, wow, what's going on here? After the meeting, the Board of Trustees got together. They discussed things with Catherine. Catherine determined that there was an error in the personal services account. She had double counted a particular salary. She also adjusted with the approval of the Board of Trustee, her contract, made, an amendment to it that it had already been approved, but it was amended. So what you see before you is roughly a 2.6% increase in the tax levy portion. You'll see a 2% increase in the operating budget, but the trust fund income is lower. So that offset went down by about 16%. So the tax levy portion comes in at 2.6. So obviously at 2.6, you say, yeah, great, that's, a wonderful spot to be. The problem is it doesn't include a settlement for the staff. And so what I did was say, okay, what happens if during negotiations, the staff, increase might be 2%, 4%, 3%, and so forth. How does that shake out when you adjust for some potential settlements? And it could be any number of rates. So if, for example, what I figured out is if it's like say a 3% increase in the COLA for the staff, turns into roughly a 4.2% increase in the total tax levy portion of their budget. So that's at 3%. So, we're okay with the budget as presented, obviously at just 2.6%. But we'll see what the final number is when the negotiations are concluded. So we're good, and I'll let Joe or Teray speak to it. But I think the three of us are okay with what we have in front of us, and we'll just see what happens in negotiations. But everything else seems to make a lot of sense.
If I may,
Yep.
sorry,
Thank you. Troy.
thank you. The only thing I would add is that the discussion with respect to the library director's compensation, there was a reason for that, and I suspect Catherine's going to get into it. There was just, based upon their assessment, historically low compensation. So part of the adjustment that they were doing is trying to make up for that. So from my perspective, when we were having the conversation, I understand it conceptually, but I think it was more of like sticker shock because of the overall amount. So, but I suspect Catherine will get into it a little bit, but I think, since right now it's about 2.9%, it generally looks fine. I just want to convey that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Kevin, got reviews?
Yeah, Kevin will start.
All right, Kevin, please.
Yes, I'll do a quick overview, turn it over to Catherine. Library budget, we're requesting an increase to this budget of $39,149 over the current fiscal year's budget. But due to a decrease in trust fund income of $10,200, trust fund income went down $10,215 from 24 to 25. So that increased the tax levy increase to this budget to $49,364. Under the salaries line item, that total increase was $34,149. This includes contractual and negotiated increases for the director and 2 members of the supervisory union. There were also step increases included for the library union workers. And as mentioned, the library union workers contract has not been settled. Contractual services has been level funded. Materials and supplies, there's a $5,000 increase. There are some items that were previously included in the capital outlay article that have been moved to the operating budget. The total budget request of fiscal 25 is $1,972,883, with $1,920,813 coming from tax levy and $52,070 coming from trust fund income, available funds.
Very good, Kevin. Thank you. Catherine, do you want to hit on any particular items or?
Are there any particular questions first?
Sure, we can go to questions. That's fine.
Why don't we do it that way?
That's fine. I have a question. Ed here has a question. Go ahead.
Madam Director, I'm just curious about I know you have a materials and supplies estimate needed to state requirements.
Yeah.
Because I know from my own experience, if you don't meet that, you got to get a waiver. So I was looking at the budget and you're estimating 256,475 is your materials and expenditures requirement under the state. But I see a budget of materials and supplies of 234,900. That doesn't seem to meet that requirement. Maybe I'm reading this wrong. I was just curious.
Oh, there are a couple of other line items that have materials and supplies in them. Mainly that's in Noble Network Services. There's a little bit there. Also, that $5,000, that originally was in Todd's budget, in Todd's capital. It was computer equipment. And we're using much less of that. When it first was in Todd's budget, it was probably, $30,000, $40,000. Now it's much less. It varies from year to year. But the key thing about that is that once it's in our budget, that counts towards materials. The state considers those items, as long as the public is using it, that's materials as well. So I always do that calculation and we're very safe.
Very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
I was also going to ask about, the good news is I was looking at the governor's budget and the cherry sheet, and it looks like Wakefield will receive an increase in library state aid in fiscal 2025. I think you get 68,389. But just curious how you go about spending your state aid. Is it for new programming or for equipment or all capital items or whatnot?
Yeah, we typically will hold back 1 year for what we call prudent reserves. And that's in the event that we lose, like say there's a 9C cut or something happens in the town. And the last time this happened was in 2008. There was a problem. And because we had state aid, we used that for materials and supplies and it kept us certified. So we'll hold 1 year back. We currently have maybe 2.5 years held back that we will be spending. So we sometimes will save it for a project. It almost always is used for things that are not covered in the regular budget. So for instance, we have a lot of small capital items. There's refrigerators or upholstery. There's no place to pay for those things. So that state aid covers that. It does all of the programming, which is about $40,000 a year. Now we also have friends and we do a fundraiser, and those will contribute to programming as well. But we often can't depend on that, so the state aid is nice. And then there are really great things that we have an opportunity to do. And the most recent one, over the last 2 years, we've spent close to $100,000 on digitization of the daily item. So that's digitized and the public can see it and search it from anywhere. And even the daily item is thrilled to have that. So that's a big ticket item. It's considered preservation. So we would never have been able to do that without state aid. So it's those kinds of things.
That's great. And one more question. Circulation, has it come back to pre-pandemic levels at this point? And how have things changed in terms of your circulation? Has that changed your level of service? Are you getting more online or digital type of services as opposed to people hard copies?
More people are taking out digital items, especially the audio. They stream. There's a lot of streaming stuff. So people will cut cable and just stream the stuff from the library. So that's going up. The books are remaining steady. People still want a hard copy. So our circulation is nice and strong. The traffic in the building isn't exactly back to where it was pre-pandemic, but it's decent. So we see good use. For the money we spend, we see really good use.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good. Other questions? I've got a couple of questions. The trust fund income came down. I don't know, if Dan has feedback on that, or Catherine? I don't
There's,
know, I follow the stock market a little bit here and there, and I thought it's been a pretty good 12 months. I don't know how that happens or what makes that up.
I
Yeah,
think
this-
it's a Kevin question, isn't it?
Whoever can answer,
Yeah.
Catherine, you're gonna say, go ahead, whoever.
yeah, there's two different kinds of trust funds. Kevin and I were talking about this. And these trust funds that offset the budget are managed by the town treasurer.
And these actual trust funds, the trustees are, the Bank of America is in charge of these funds. And we booked them on our balance sheet, but the town really has no say that these funds were turned over to the Bank of America. They are currently the trustees, so we're basically at their mercy on how those funds are managed.
Is it atypical? Is this an odd year, would you say?
It goes up and down every year. I think that 62,000 from last year was the highest it's been in quite a while, or it might be the highest ever. So I was expecting some pullback, but 10,000 was a little bit high for me, but we're basically at their mercy.
Okay. I did read the minutes and I would say it was probably sticker shock for me looking at the salary increases initially. And somewhere in the minutes from the subcommittee, it talked about salary compression problem. So I don't know if somebody can speak to that part of it or not.
Yeah, so there was a salary compression problem. I think the new budget mitigates it substantially. I'm not sure it's completely healed,
Yeah.
but it's basically the salary difference between the executive director and the assistant director.
Yep.
Now, I also wanted to do a follow-up with Kevin, as long as I've got the floor.
Yes.
So Kevin, in terms of the trust fund and Bank of America, so you said that we're at their mercy. So we must have a contract with them to manage this trust fund.
No,
How you gonna lose that much money?
I mean,
No,
it's
At least
it's
make a
it's
money
it's
market rate on it?
it's the
Probably
town's
some,
it's the town's money.
it is the
Shouldn't-
town's money, but we're
Yeah.
not the custodian or the trustee of the funds, so.
You're talking about the asset manager. We're not the asset manager. Do we set, for example, an asset policy with the bank? Well, wait a
Not to my-
second. So we must have a contract with them, right?
With the donor.
These are
What the
funds,
donor asked for.
they're not under control of our treasurer.
Can I just say something? to
Yes,
them?
yes, please.
I remember maybe 15 at least years ago, the trustees at that time did negotiate with Bank of America. And what I remember coming out of it was that they felt, however they were managing the money, the trustees made the case that they were managing it for the future at the expense of the present generation. And so my understanding is that there were some changes made at that time in our favor to release it, to change that structure so that we would get a little more money. But how it's actually managed, I don't know.
Well, wait a minute. So are you saying that the Board of Trustees has the agreement with Bank of America and
I don't think they do have I am not aware of any agreement with Bank of America. As far as I know, it was I'll say this too, these trust funds are all very, very old. These are BB and they go way far back. And new funds really have not been added to them. They're the oldest funds from what I can tell. So whatever the restrictions were, the treasurer must have that information.
well, okay.
Yeah.
So let's assume
Very
that,
old
you know,
document.
yeah, so
30s.
$1 million was donated by some individual into a trust fund for the benefit of the library. So somebody has got to be in charge of and has control over these trust funds. And maybe it's not the town, maybe it's not the Board of Library Trustees. It might the descendants of the original donors. I mean, I think this is something we ought to track down and figure out.
Yeah, I think we could take it back to the board, the library board, to see if they could give us a little documentation on it. I don't know, Catherine, if that's something you could bring back to the board?
Yeah, we don't have any documentation on it.
Treasurer would have.
That's what, I think the treasurer has it.
Okay.
I can double check with the treasurer, but I know these funds are not in the custody or under the control of the treasurer. They're under the control of the trustee. The trustee is the Bank of America.
All right, I guess I just would ask then, for the benefit of this group, you can ask Kevin and Catherine can check with the board if you already know that, Catherine, by what you said.
Okay.
But somebody has the money, something is getting done with the money, and the library's getting income from said money. There's some policy or some sort of
But irregardless, the trustee has the fiduciary responsibility to do right with your money.
Right.
So like if it's not making a rate of return commensurate with, I'm not saying it needs to mirror the S&P 500, but like, could it be somewhere between the money market fund and the S&P 500 would be good, you know? But not,
yeah, I didn't
looking at it is not going to help
I
anybody,
didn't look at
so.
previous years, but anyway, it just.
Yeah,
struck
I
me.
mean, especially for my forecasting, because I'm trying to figure out how much we're going to get from this trust fund from year to year. And if
Sure.
I understood the rules, if I understood what the policy was, the asset allocation, it would really help me figure out, what am I going to get in the future?
All right.
To that point, Dan, if nobody knows how the trust agreement works, I bet nobody's looked at the asset allocation in a very, very long time.
Agreed,
Well,
agreed.
I think they would have in, that 15 years ago when they pushed Bank of America to change it so that it would earn a little bit more.
Right.
Because it did happen then. But I do recall that when the trustees did that, it's not the trustees, it's not their money. And they don't have any, they're responsible for the library. So I don't know if it was in the original documents, because I'll tell you this too, that money is supposed to be all spent on materials.
And
So
I agree, Catherine. I don't really, I'm not saying it's on the trustees to take a peek to oversee that the fiduciary at the bank is doing their job and keeping up and keeping pace with market changes. So it might not be the trustees' responsibility to actually make those investment decisions. It's the fiduciaries, but they need to check on the fiduciary.
Yeah, there's gotta be some governance, even if it was from an original donation, right?
Yeah.
Ed, as you said.
It'll be a trust document.
Right.
A trust document.
Trust document.
Yeah.
But it is, as I recall, it was very,
Yeah, okay, we'll try to get some more info, I think.
Yeah.
I remember seeing it.
Thank you, Catherine.
we'll
Yeah.
find out.
Yeah, I just want to understand what it is. I'm not saying it has to change. I just want to understand what it
no.
is.
Agreed. Billy?
Just quick question. I apologize. I'm not sure I understood the issue of the salary and salary compression. My question is not to challenge it, but just has the issue of the salary disparity been going on for years? It couldn't have just become an issue this year.
It started when I was hired. I was hired in 2017. The director before me had been there for 40 years. And when I was hired, I accepted a salary that was lower than the per hour salary I was making as assistant director. And at the time, it was because they felt I was untested as a director. But now there's an assistant director. I have 25 years of service.
Yeah.
And as she increases from, it wasn't as noticeable, but as she increases and gets steps, and the longer she's there, it's becoming more of an issue. And I think we also considered the fact that if you want a replacement, I'll go back to maybe our situation isn't quite what the chief has. But there are fewer librarians and there are fewer administrative librarians in the state of Massachusetts than there once was. And to get somebody experienced, you probably are going to want to try to steal them from another library. So I think that's what they were looking at as well.
Yeah, I guess just unfortunate to hear that it's taken 7 years to try to do some reconciliation or catch up. That's all. So I appreciate you explaining that, Catherine. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, I'm good. Anybody else? All right, Catherine, I will just say, I mean, the budget every year, it's very thorough and there's a lot to see there, so I appreciate that. A lot of line items to review and understand, so thank you much.
You're welcome. Thank you for taking the time.
Very
to
good.
look at this.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes the budgets for this evening. We'll review some minutes. The 111 meeting minutes are not ready because I think I'm supposed to do those. I know those are not done. Although I wasn't there. Doug Butler was the guy running that meeting.
Kevin should do it.
But I'll take care of it. So
Sounds like Doug's problem.
Yeah, he's not here, right? Right, Evan?
Perfect.
Perfect. Okay, so the next one is the library subcommittee minutes of 124. Entertain a motion.
I move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
That was Teray and then seconded by Dan. Any discussion on the library minutes? Okay, all those in favor of the library subcommittee minutes?
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you. We had finance committee minutes from the 125-24 meeting. Entertain a motion on that.
I'll move.
That was
Second.
Bill,
Yeah.
seconded by who?
Dan.
Thank you. Any discussion on the minutes of 125-24 for the full finance committee? All those in favor of the minutes, 25-24, 125? Anyone opposed? Unanimous? Thank you. And then we had the police subcommittee minutes dated 1/2/24. Entertain a motion on those.
Motion to approve police subcommittee minutes.
Motion by Ed.
I'll second.
Thank you.
That Amy?
That was Amy. Any discussion? All those in favor of the subcommittee minutes of the police subcommittee of February 1st?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you for doing the minutes. Appreciate it. They were thorough and gave a good overview when I checked them out anyway. Thank you. The last one, IT, I just got today, so I won't present that tonight. We'll have to add that next meeting, Steve.
Yep.
All right. Open it up to committee comments. Dan, I think your hand's up under the record button.
Yeah, I just want to give everybody an update. As these budgets come out, I've updated my forecasting spreadsheet. And right now I'm showing about a $500,000 deficit for fiscal year 25, based on the budgets we've received and the known income expected from the state. We don't have final numbers yet, but right now we're a modest deficit of $500,000. So so far so good. We're okay. We can handle 500,000. We'll see what the future brings. So we'll see what happens going forward. Thank you.
Great. Appreciate that. I know the budgets aren't final from the state. Is that right?
No, they're still in the House One budget or the governor's budget, so, which is not
very attractive.
Not very attractive at all for the cities and towns, I should say.
Right.
A community next to us, because I kind of run the communities around us just to see, like, if I'm gonna get really angry at chapter 70, they get a lot more than we did. And one community that abuts us is actually their net local aid for fiscal year 25 is less than fiscal year 24.
Wow.
Wow.
And it's
With the chargebacks or the.
with the net and the whole net.
The
So it's-
assessments, yeah.
Assessments, so it's I had a discussion with that town manager this afternoon. He goes, "Did you see?" I said, "Yeah, I did. I wasn't gonna call you though. I was gonna let you figure it out yourself." So, yeah. But if I have the floor, I did share some good news today.
Go right ahead.
Some good news for your forecast, Dan. I sent it to you, I think.
I already incorporated that
Okay.
good news into my forecast.
That's good. So anyways, like Wakefield High School, received more from SBA. In fact, Joe and I both signed the project funding agreement. Hopefully they're happy, right? The amendment that gave us more money.
We just have to keep signing the same paper over and over
Maybe
again.
we'll get double.
That's right. That's what we're hoping.
Yeah. So we're getting more money, which is great for the taxpayer. It's all gonna shake out what we borrow at, but we're borrowing less, so that's gonna help. Vocational school also got, some more money, and that is within our tax levy. We decided to do it that way, so we don't know really what the schedule's gonna be, because it's dependent on how many kids there each year, but running, where we are now, it's, some years it's 120,000 less than we had our original schedule. So that's nice going through.
Steve, when you project that out with the new vote, do you take into consideration that probably many more kids from the community would want to go there, or do you just feel incrementally it's not that big of a number?
Yeah, this is really kind of based on our normal number that we have.
Yeah,
On what our percentage is usually 8% of the kids.
yeah, got it.
All right, so that was
positive.
good to hear. Any other comments from the committee?
Steve, you should also give us the good news regarding our $30 million initial bond.
Oh, okay. So we did the first major, I'll call major borrowing on the high school, and we banned it. We went a bond anticipation note because we're praying that rates will come down a little bit between now and the fall, when I think we'll go for a lot more based on our construction schedule. So we did ban out about 30,500,000. We maintained our AAA bond rating. Our net interest cost on this ban was 3.12% to 3.16% or something like that. So really was very good, really good return. Hoping to go out for a big, large amount in the fall. I was hoping for 3 rate cuts by then. Maybe they'll just be 2, but we do what we do.
Yeah, a lot of people wait for rate cuts. They don't seem to be coming.
I know, not coming quick enough.
Okay, great. The school subcommittee met, try to go over some information and sort of talk process. And we are looking to have the schools come visit the full finance committee like 2 weeks before their scheduled meeting, I think it is. Looking at my notes, and I don't think I have my notes with me. But the schools are due to visit us on 4/8. Excuse me, on 4/11. I think they were going to come in and see us on 3/14 for a preliminary look. That was myself.
That's the date. That's the date we talked about. That is the date.
Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
So they also did provide us with a spreadsheet of the book. I asked, took a couple of asks, but I asked for a sample. So they sent us last year's book. So basically we have, I can send it to you, but it's last year's numbers. I don't think it adds a lot of value. But what you see in the book, the tables and stuff in the back of the book, for example, that's all in a spreadsheet format that we've sort of been fighting for or asking for. So
for decades.
And Brian's already been sort of massaging it and working it a little bit. So anyway, I expect that as soon as it's practical. whether we see it in a preliminary fashion or we see it, after they speak to the school committee about it. But either way, we'll get a spreadsheet version of the book. So it's not every page, but there's a lot of stuff in there and you can do some analysis. So that was good. So
Jim, do we have any other subcommittee meetings scheduled with them?
I don't think we have another subcommittee scheduled with them, because as sort of as I mentioned at that meeting, we went to the facilities and finance subcommittee meeting. And I had talked to Doug Lyons about it, that meeting just doesn't work for us. We need a preliminary book. We need a meeting where we can look page by page and talk about the book, similar to how other subcommittees talk about the finances and the other departments. So that's kind of what I talked to Doug about. We don't have one scheduled yet. We sort of went over a little bit at some of the high level wish list type things and that sort of thing. So they don't have anything ready yet for that dialogue. So no, Bill, but he did agree we got to schedule one. So
Good question, Jim.
Okay, thank you.
Jim, just following up on that, I was a little confused last year when the school business manager said that the school budget isn't on Munis. Kevin, is that the case? I mean, would we be able to run budget to actuals of the school budget during the course of the year? Maybe I heard wrong.
You're on mute, Kev.
Kevin?
Yes, no, their budget is on Munis.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So, we could run, half a fiscal year report and see where they stood and whatnot.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So also, and of course I don't have it, too much paper in my house. But if you go on the website for the school committee, you can see the packets that they receive. And basically, there's a financial report at the end of each month. I'll send you the last one because I printed it. I have it in a PDF format. So she does provide a monthly update to the school committee, which talks about, what's been spent, what's been encumbered and how things look. So it's like 5 pages in the packet and, it's got the revolving accounts, it's got spend, they show, they kind of show what's spent and they show what's encumbered. And, a lot of it's encumbered. So there's not a lot, showing to be left for the end of the year type of thing, but it's a useful few pages. So I'll provide that.
Definitely like to look at
Are there any big bombs like on the horizon, like big transportation costs, big sped costs, like anything that is enormous that they're wrestling with or that they've intimated to you?
No, I don't think so. I think they're worried about some special education. Billy, did he talk about some special education concerns? Do you recall that, or transportation?
No.
No.
Sorry, I don't
Because
know.
normally if those it can be big, they at the beginning of the year, unless they get a new student, they kind of know early if there's going to be some big ask in that realm.
Yeah.
So luckily you have a special ed stabilization fund, is that
Right.
correct?
Correct.
And they have a lot left in circuit breaker
Yeah,
for that too.
yeah,
An awful lot left.
yeah.
Was I supposed to say that, Kevin? Kevin's not.
There is a lot.
Yeah, any news on a teacher's contract?
Nothing
Um,
official.
Nothing official, but it's positive.
And the revolving accounts continue to go up. And the school superintendent made it clear to me that he will be more prepared and more able to talk about the revolving accounts and where the money's going to be used throughout the budget to us and to the rest of this body when they come visit us. So I didn't even have to talk about it, or Doug Butler didn't even have to bring it up. He knew enough to be clear about it. So, but the money keeps going up. So that's a good thing. And I said that to him in the meeting. I said, this is a great revenue source. It's good that whatever you're doing, however you're doing it, you're making money in these programs. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I might have misheard, but I could swear that he was intimating that they might be able to use some of these monies for things that perhaps they weren't originally intended for. And they would be able to do it within the schools themselves, right? Like that was the sense that I got. I could be wrong, but.
Yeah, and he talked about chargebacks, charging across accordingly from some of the things Ed brought up and that Steve's talking about. So, anyway, it was good. Doug Butler did a nice job. He was the bad cop, I guess, at the meeting we were at, and he had some poignant points to bring through, and they heard it loud and clear. So anyway, that was our first meeting.
He came in hot.
I'll just say I was impressed. That's all I have. All right, so our next meeting is the 29th, so it's a leap year. We have a 29. So that's 2 weeks from tonight. And hopefully there's not a Bruins game, because my kids went to the game tonight and not me. But that's okay. Anything else? Anyone else? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Evan, made by Brian. All those in favor, thank you much for coming and attending. Appreciate it.